because my mom was born and raised in County Down. She came over here at 17 years of age, and I have family there. My second cousin Mairead is actually one of the leads of Riverdance, which is now touring the United States. So it's just like I have a special place in my heart for you. So, but yeah, this is the best time of year. You know, you grind away through an 82 game season to get to this. And I always try to say to people that the difference in intensity between a regular season game and the playoffs is extraordinary. You walk in an NBA arena, there are 19,000 people, and you could almost reach out and touch the level of intensity and so many storylines. I know I'm psyched because this Friday and Sunday I will call the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron James at 40 years of age remains a guy like Stephen Curry, who's 36, who still captures the imagination of the American sports fan. Their sustained excellence has been great. Everybody's wondering, can they advance and meet in the next round? So yeah, best time of year, best.
And I suppose, Doris, you mentioned there the Irish sort of connection as such, and we're always hoping that one day that we might see a player from this side of the world break through in terms of the college route and onto the NBA sort of scene. And it's so difficult. We've so prominent sort of young, real female basketball stars have gone on to done really good things at collegiate level in the United States. But even to get to a college level, to play at a good college level in the United States, it doesn't necessarily mean so many really talented collegiate players. Only like 1% of those, the top one elite, make it to the NBA. So for American to make it to the NBA is very tough, but for a foreigner to make it to the NBA, I imagine is even much tougher, even though we've seen an influx of Europeans in the last
Yeah.
few years, mainly from Eastern Europe, though.
One of the things that I love about the NBA is that you mentioned how few people make it. So there are 30 teams with 15 to 16 guys, maybe a little bit more than that if you include two-way players. You're talking about 450 men occupying the jobs of this particular league. You know, it's no different than soccer, right? Those are the very best of the best. And what I love is think about the MVP. I mean, we are going to have another MVP this year who is not out of the United States. This is how global the game has become. Giannis Antetokounmpo, the best player in the world right now is Nikola Jokic from Serbia. Luka Doncic, arguably the worst trade for one organization and the best trade for somebody else, I believe is going to win multiple MVPs. I think it might be the last 6 or 7. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I expect to win it. So global game, very hard, but the Europeans, and I don't know, you know, I've heard many theories about why there's been such an influx. And early in the year, I had the number of the percentage of players that are European that are making up the rosters. And every single season, it is growing and growing. Yeah, but just so much fun. So much fun because it should be the best game in the world. And if you include the world, that's from everywhere.
I suppose when we talk about one of the biggest things that happened in the NBA this year, how to compare it, I suppose it would be like if you took an NFL version, it would be like Patrick Mahomes leaving the Kansas City Chiefs to go to the Green Bay Packers. If you took a football analogy, it would be like Lionel Messi leaving Barcelona to go to Real Madrid, for example. Um, we always think that there are players that are beyond elite status, that are the untouchables, dare I say, in
Mm,
terms of
yes.
the ones, and we sort of recognize them. I think of maybe at the time Kobe Bryant was an untouchable back in my day. The likes of Dwayne Wade was untouchable. Michael Jordan was untouchable. Tracy McGrady in his pomp when he was injury free was untouchable. And Luka Doncic was almost fitted into that category, as you almost thought, well, he himself, Giannis, Nikola Jokic, LeBron, Steph Curry, these are the guys that probably are untouchable within the NBA. And it really rocked the entire world. I imagine it was a shock in the United States, but the global effect, I mean, everyone all across Europe and the world afar was really, really shocked by this. And I suppose the heat, the unwanted publicity it brought towards it with Dallas has been frightening in magnitude, that it really has left a sour taste across basically the world, how it was carried out. It
Oh
almost
yeah.
felt like a disrespect, maybe, or
Jim, 100%. I mean, I don't think we can overstate how profoundly felt this was, certainly in the two respective cities. The rest of the league is angry that the Los Angeles Lakers have gotten now this, what is a generational kind of player, and that they got him without getting a second round draft choice. And, you know, a lot of rumors floating around as to why. Here's what I know about Luka Doncic. It is an incredibly difficult thing to make a first team All NBA. Any year, I'm telling you, those 5 spots are so competitive. This young man, starting at 18 years of age, did it for 5 straight times, and he went to an NBA Finals. And you traded him away for Anthony Davis and 1 first-round pick. You didn't get Austin Reeves. You didn't get the Lakers' second-round pick. If you're going to make a move that is that seismic, you have got to get a king's ransom. And Nico Harrison, this will define his career. He'll never be known for anything else, to me, than trading Luka Doncic away. He had a press conference yesterday and he was saying, you cannot judge me yet. We had too many injuries. We're coming back next year. We're going to be healthy and you can judge me then. But it was truly extraordinary. I think it was the wrong move. There's some, you know, there was some frustration that Luka wasn't always as well conditioned. That may be a fair point. And I could say the soft tissue injuries that added up, the constant calf injuries that kept haunting him. Fair. Do you know how old Luka Doncic is? 26. Jim, can I ask you a question? Would you want your entire legacy to be defined about who you are at 26 years of age? Or do you think there's still a lot of growing and maturing to do at that point?
I fully agree. And the one thing that surprised me when I heard it, when they were saying about Luka and the conditioning, was that they traded him for a player who throughout his last few years of his career has missed a lot more games for a longer stretch. This is they traded a guy that played a lot more games for a guy who was more injury sort of prone. If they made a trade for, say, Anthony Edwards, you could
Yes.
understand it in some sort of sense, if there was because Anthony Edwards goes hard every single night. He plays 100 games. So this is a guy, Anthony Davis, who in his peak is a phenomenal player, but he's in his sort of 30s and he has an awful lot of history of back injury problems. Whatever about Luka, Luka plays hurt. But Anthony Davis, when he's hurt, he doesn't play.
Never plays. And people are, you know, I think, I'm not sure he's ever played 82 games. I feel like I just looked this up recently where he's played 2 seasons of 72. That's been at his peak. That's been a long time in coming, right? This year he was as available as he had been. I'm not even including the number of times, Jim, where he'd play in a game. We had him on Christmas Day. He got hit in the eye in the first quarter and never made it back to the game. Now, listen, I'm not sitting here telling you that Anthony Davis is not a tremendously talented player and a two-way force. But as you said, is he available? And if that's the guy you're trading for Luka, you can make the case you're making, and there's no argument to be made. He's not been available consistently. Listen, we're still talking about it. We will talk about this trade for years. And I believe fully that Luka will win an NBA championship with Los Angeles, barring a catastrophic injury. And this is going to be attached to Nico Harrison for a long time.
Yeah, and last point I would like to make about that is the emphasis is focusing on now on Kyrie Irving to be the main scorer. And I suppose Kyrie Irving is very temperamental. I know he has his sort of his views on sort of life, but outside of basketball, he can be very sort of lofty, as I say. When he is on his pomp, he's unplayable. But when we saw the Kyrie at his best, he's always been a two-way player with someone playing off him. In terms of in Cleveland, he was sensational with LeBron. But the spells at Brooklyn didn't work. The spells at Boston didn't work. Where the onus was him to carry the team. Kyrie at Dallas worked because Luka was the main guy and Kyrie was the second file. But I don't really see, can Kyrie be the main guy? That's my hesitation.
I think what they're counting on, and Jim, I think, believe me, if all of those pieces are healthy and available, so I'm talking about Gafford, Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, PJ Washington, Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, if they have their full contingent of players, do I believe they can be in the mix? I do. That's an extraordinary if for all of the points we've made before. Both Anthony Davis and Kyrie, as they've advanced into their career, injuries tend to pile up. The exception to the rule is the LeBron James type, who's consistently available for the most part over the course of what has been now a 2-decade plus career. So all the points you make are valid. For Nico Harrison's sake, I hope they're competitive next year.
Yeah. And just on maybe the other big storyline before we get into the playoffs, and it shocked me. I've spoken to Mike Malone a few times. I did a sit-down interview with him in terms in the past, and you really got to see the love and the draw he had for basketball and sort of passionate he was. And maybe it was coming to the end of the era, but the timing was shocking. It was out of this world in terms of you're talking basically 10 days before a playoff series with a coach that has got his team into the playoffs. They haven't missed the postseason like Nick Nurse at the Philadelphia 76ers, who won the NBA in the past, but Philadelphia Sixers were nowhere near the playoffs and haven't been for a long time. But yet Mike Malone, a week or so after getting his team into the playoff, and we know Denver are a consistent outfit in the playoffs. It would have been talked as maybe as at least conference finalists in terms of that. It just sort of shocked me that maybe it was a disrespect for a guy that achieved history. They wanted to let the season finish out, let it see us out, and then come June or July, when it's all quieting down, if there was a parting away, so be it. But it just left a bitter taste from what I saw in terms of how it was handled, and maybe a huge amount of disrespect for Mike Malone and everything that he achieved in Denver Nuggets.
Right. Winning an NBA championship is hard. Consistently making the playoffs is hard. Michael Malone did both of those things with the Denver Nuggets. What ultimately I think did him in, and what became untenable and what started to permeate throughout the entire organization, was the awful state of the relationship between the general manager, Calvin Booth, and Michael Malone. Michael believed in, like most NBA coaches, playing veterans more than young people. So when they allowed Jeff Green to walk and Bruce Brown to walk and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, those are not names that are on a casual NBA fan's fingertips, but what they are pivotal pillars to get you over the finish line this, Jim. NBA games are usually decided by a margin of like 1.5 points per game. That margin is so slim that the difference between winning and losing is often 1 3-minute stretch, and it may not be right at the end of the game. And listen, I think Michael Malone's going to be hired. He's going to get another job. That's just the nature of the business. And I think what happened was they probably went to Nikola Jokic and said, we're going to make this move. We wanted to make this move at the All-Star break. They wanted to make this change at the All-Star break. Then they went on an 8-game winning streak. And I think what the ownership feared, Jim, Denver has the chance to advance a couple of rounds, and they believed there were systemic problems that had, taken over the team, and that if Michael were to win 2 series, it would have been very hard to fire him because, as the ownership said, winning masks some systemic problems. I don't agree with it. I believe Michael Malone will coach in the NBA and should. I'm just telling you what the rationale in Denver was. And I do think the breakdown of that relationship is ultimately what caused them to make a move, because the atmosphere inside the building was described to me as toxic. Very hard to function that way. And remember, Jim, Nikola Jokic is a restricted free agent who has the ability to sign an extension. And when you heard Nikola's comments about, they made a decision and I didn't fight that decision, to me, that is a tacit acceptance of maybe it was time for a change.
I'm just going to bring you on, Doris, to the bit of the playoffs now, and in terms of looking on. And I suppose we'll start and we'll maybe talk about the West. And I suppose the one thing people talk about the West in terms of this is not a once off. This has been building and building in OKC for a while. It's been building for basically 3 years in terms of progression. And people label their youth against them. Oh, they're a young team. They're a young team. They don't have an experience. They haven't had players that have done it, been there, done it, got the silverware. They don't have veterans experience. But yes, they topped the regular season 82 season, led it for most of the entire league. Last year they got so close, but they had the sort of experience of going deep into the playoffs. Are they really legit contenders? Is it going to be another season where they might need to get more and more deeper experience, and then maybe a superstar player, a generation player will take them down? Or is this time our OKC looking and saying to themselves, like, this is a real genuine championship team that in the playoffs now can really match it with anyone?
I believe they are a championship caliber team. I believe they have the talent, the depth, the coaching, and the star power to win. That doesn't necessarily mean you will win, okay? Number one, they are an incredibly elite defensive team who normally you get down to that third or fourth defensive player and there is some weakness. That is not the case. The third player you're thinking about defensively, fourth player might be Alex Caruso, Cason Wallace, Jalen Williams. I believe they have everything required, and I will frankly be surprised if they don't come out of the West and advance to the NBA Finals. If you're going to ask me today who I would pick, if I had to put money down on somebody, I believe it will be the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Boston Celtics. Am I right? I don't know. I don't know. But I believe they have all the tools. If there is one weakness for this team, that to me could catch them. Remember what I was just saying about there could be a 2 or 3 minute stretch, right? We always talk about the on-off numbers of the best players. When Nikola Jokic goes to the bench, the Denver Nuggets offense craters. They're just not very good without him. And that is the one weakness that I think could foil OKC in the long run. And that is the minutes without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's going to win the MVP. He has been absolutely brilliant. He's such a force going downhill. He can create separation on his mid-range jump shot. He can make enough threes that you got to push up, and that makes his drive game much more dangerous. But Jim, when he goes off the floor, their offense simply isn't as dangerous or as smooth. And in that 2 or 3 minute stretch, when it's your bench against their bench, somebody could take advantage of the Oklahoma City Thunder. It happened in the Emirates Cup in Las Vegas. Their offense went south. Milwaukee beat them for the championship. To me, it's the only thing standing in their way. I don't think youth is an excuse anymore. They had their playoff run. They've been now in big games. The only thing I think could pinch them is maybe a stretch of offense where, they struggle, and that's when a team takes advantage.
I suppose, Doris, we're all biased as journalists in terms of that, but we all have our favorites. And I suppose for over 30 years now, I've been a loyal sort of Houston Rockets fan. I've gone through the highs, I've gone through the lows. In the previous year, there have been so many highs and so many lows. In the previous years, it looked like it was low and low and low. And then in the last 2 years, we have a coach that has done a remarkable job. He came into one of the hardest jobs in the NBA, and smart recruitment, smart draft picks, smart organization, and he's turned a franchise around. And if there's a coaching job for me in terms of coach of the year, in terms of this, I think what he's done with the Rockets has been sensational altogether. But they go into playoffs now, and I'm actually fearful because it's probably the toughest. It's probably the tide around for me in the Western Conference at the moment. It's probably the hardest draw because we always knew the Warriors going into the playoffs were going to be an awful lot stronger than what the season showing. And Jimmy Butler is playoff time, Jimmy Magic, Jimmy playoff time, and this when he really comes into his own. And we saw what he's done with Miami so many times. And it's fearful the thought of him and Steph catching fire. If those two catch fire during the playoffs, I think they're basically, the combination is unstoppable. So I'm hoping for Warriors success, but I know if the Rockets get, I'm hoping for Rockets success, but I know if the Warriors get over this round, then the Warriors are going to be serious contenders for me anyway.
Yeah, listen, game one, you held the Golden State Warriors to 95 points. That should have been enough for you to win, but this team struggles to score the basketball. You look at what Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet shot in that game. You are not walking out of that gym with a win when your backcourt, your starting backcourt, has that kind of shooting night, not against the Golden State Warriors. So, first of all, I can't say enough about Ime Udoka. Not only from an X and O standpoint, a player development standpoint, in-game adjustment, but the culture he has set, the level of toughness and physicality, mental toughness, the ability to compete possession by possession and value the ball and understand you've got to make stops in order to win at the NBA level. I cannot say enough about Ime Udoka. Your boys are in trouble. So I fully expect Golden State to win. They're dangerous. Jimmy Butler, playoff Jimmy is a real thing. In fact, I know for a fact that Eric Spoelstra basically told Steve Kerr, playoff Jimmy is a real phenomenon. He's so fundamentally sound. He's big. He's strong. He takes care of the weaknesses of the Golden State Warriors. He's a low mistake, low turnover player. He can operate in one-on-one advantage basketball, but he can also play in their system and make really quick decisions. Yeah, your boys are in trouble. I think Golden State wins that series.
And just on to another ones, Lakers, Timberwolves, we all fascinating. But I think with the Timberwolves, the off-season trade, and man, I thought it would crash and burn for them this year. I thought getting rid of the center that went to New York Knicks was a mistake.
Karl Anthony Towns.
Karl Anthony Towns. I thought basically they should have got an awful lot more for him. They got very little in return for probably the third best big man in the NBA. And no offense to the player that came from the New York Knicks in return. I just don't think he's at Julius Randle. I don't think he's nowhere near Karl Anthony Towns level. But Karl Anthony Towns with this Timberwolves team, I would have given him a real good chance to get over the Lakers. I just think there's too much for Anthony Edwards to do to beat a Lakers side without the.
I don't know, Jim. They were pretty impressive on Saturday night, and this is a matchup issue for Los Angeles. First of all, the difference between game one between the two teams, the Lakers did not have the necessary disposition. I didn't think they played with any sense of urgency, and I just can't tell you enough the number of times NBA players have told me it is a strikingly different game in the playoffs. As soon as that calendar turns, there's a level of physicality. The scouting is so much better. Listen, I'm partial because I worked with JJ Redick and I have covered that young man since he was a college freshman. We are good friends, and I think he'll make some adjustments and they will play harder. But keep in mind, the Minnesota Timberwolves, after what was a very uneven year, I believe they have won 17 of their last 21 games. And the most important thing they're doing right now is they've caught their rhythm at the right time. Julius Randle in game one defended like I've never seen him defend. If he brings that level of intensity on the defensive end, that changes things. And as you said, Anthony Edwards is electric. This guy could be the face of the league. He's charismatic. He's gifted physically. He's fun. He's personable. He's all these things. But the most important thing is he is a bad man when he hits the basketball floor. Like, this guy is so talented. And he was playmaking. He was breaking Austin Reeves down. Like, that's a series that I believe goes at least 6 games and a toss-up in game 7.
And the final game on the West before I bring you to these, I suppose this is you mentioned harmony, and you mentioned that there might have been a toxic start to harmony in the Nuggets, but probably something similar maybe in case of the Clippers. There's so many stories throughout the years whether the harmony has been good. We always know with James Harden there's friction somewhere in terms of lines. Paul George left in the offseason. Does Kyrie and James Harden, is sister Bond, does Kyrie play fully healthy, and outside of that, the pieces. So this is the series where they both could beat each other, and maybe as you talk about, both could probably explode as well. And I suppose Denver have the bit more experience, while Clippers are enigma. Really, you just don't know what you're going to get with them.
Yeah, this series to me is the best first round series in the playoffs. By far the best first round. I think if you're a Denver fan, you're a little concerned because Kawhi Leonard looks like the Kawhi Leonard who, in two NBA championships, was amongst the best players on the floor. In San Antonio, it was different. He was a lockdown defender, but he basically held LeBron James in check in winning the title with San Antonio. And then in Toronto, he was the big shot maker. When Kawhi is healthy, he's as good a basketball player on both ends as there is. James Harden has had a magnificent year, and he's still magic with the basketball in his hands. So for me, it's a couple things with Denver. You know they're going to go exclusively to the two-man game down the stretch. Jamal and Nikola are going to do their thing. Russell Westbrook is going to continue to get shots. Can he make enough open threes? And can their young guys, can Christian Brown, can Peyton Watson, can those guys comport themselves with a maturity that's required in the playoffs? Because you have to have more than just your two stars. Sometimes a role player by themselves will win a game by making 3 to 4 jump shots, at moments that are just big. It might be a swing where you need to stop momentum and build it on your side, or it could be late game. That series, to me, is the most compelling in the first round, and I honestly have no idea who wins it.
And Doris, I'm going to bring you to the East. I know we're touching on time. The Detroit Pistons over the last 5 years have been the laughable excuse around the world. Everyone was laughing, everyone was joking. 28 game on losing sort of streak, would it be the world sort of series in sport? Everyone was having their laugh about the Pistons. JB Bickerstaff comes in there in terms of that. Probably felt hard done by what happened in sort of Cleveland. For them to finish maybe mid-table or see 10th or the playoff, people said that's progress. For them to get into the playoffs, it's really, and to think they made veteran moves, but no one sort of expected. But they're in the playoffs and they're competing hard, and the Knicks are in a real series here.
They are in a real series. 3-6. I mean, who would have thought you would triple your win total if you're JB Bickerstaff and have a team that, as you said, had been extraordinarily bad for an extended stretch, and to turn it around that quickly, to me, speaks to JB's coaching ability. And it's a couple things. It's establishing a defensive identity. It's playing with physicality, trying to keep your turnovers to a minimum. You said this earlier, Jim, and I thought it was such a good point. You were talking about having the right veterans. So the Malik Beasleys, the Tim Hardaway Juniors, those guys who just settle the locker room down when it's required. You added the shooting. I mean, Malik Beasley made 319 threes this year. That's the kind of shooting that gets you over the finish line in a lot of games. This series will go for Detroit as Cade Cunningham goes. In the 3 regular season series, he averaged over 30 points and damn near a triple double. He was brilliant. He's 6'6", really well built. I call him a power pick and roll player. And the Knicks didn't have an answer for him defensively in the regular season. In the fourth quarter of game 1, which they lost, he struggled. And therefore they struggled. So he is sort of the barometer of how things are going. I don't care what happens in the series. If you're Detroit, you just want this series to last as many games as possible, because what you need now is you need postseason experience so that you can keep building your program out.
And I suppose Knicks shrewd recruitment in terms of that. And I suppose with shrewd recruitment comes expectation. But do you have to remember this is a Knicks team that is probably building and building. And I think they have a bit more building to do and still, yes, in terms of deepening the roster.
I agree. I think the depth is critical. And, there's times where I wish Miles McBride would play more. And it's, as you know, Tom Thibodeau, I think that, in history, there have been 5 times where teams in the NBA have three of the top minutes per game players, and Tom Thibodeau has three of those guys. So the question always swirls around Tom. People always question his job security because they think he wears his players out. But you have to have at least an 8-man roster in the playoffs. Sometimes you can get away and win it with 7. But listen, you got Karl Anthony Towns because you knew you needed more than Jalen Brunson. And one of the things I said, I had game 1 in the series, and I said OG Anunoby cannot lose his level of aggression when Brunson went out. OG had 10 straight 20-point games and 5 straight 25-point games. The more diverse you are offensively, the more dangerous you are. Like Jalen Brunson has got to make sure he scores, but that Karl Anthony Towns and OG and Mikal are getting their shots, and we'll hope that Miles McBride and Shamet and all these guys off the bench, and most particularly Mitchell Robinson, they play some extended minutes.
Yeah. And we spoke about coaches under pressure. For me, Doc Rivers is probably a coach under pressure in these sort of playoffs in terms of people will look at the roster. I know there's problems with Damian Lillard's health, but still moves were made. And I suppose this is a franchise that are expecting this is Giannis's golden era. They need to be delivering when Giannis is at his peak, really.
Yeah, Giannis is going to finish third in the MVP. I'm convinced of that. I think it'll be Shea, Nikola, and then Giannis. He's had an MVP type of year, maybe the best year of his career. But it's beyond those two guys. It's been a struggle for that team. And listen, Doc has been around the block many times in the NBA. This is a results-oriented business. And if you don't get results, there are going to be changes. I don't know how much pressure he's under individually. I would say the most pressure being felt, Jim, is by the organization, because Giannis could decide at some point, because he's made this clear, I don't want to be a one-time champion. I want my legacy to be more than one championship. And if he gets to the point where he believes the organization is not giving him that chance, does he decide to put some pressure on them and ask to go somewhere else?
I suppose if you're Boston Celtics, you're sitting happy and pretty. You're where you want to be. Everything's sort of looking rosy. No injury sort of problems. Happy roster. Internal fighting between your main sort of rivals as well. People talking up other teams, and you are where you want to be. And there's probably less hype about you. So if you're Boston, you look at Magic, you expect them to get over that sort of series as well, and probably well rested for the next round. So it seems to be a good place for Boston Celtics at the moment.
I agree with you. And I think the single most important thing that's happened down the stretch of the season, and you saw this in game 1 on Sunday, Jrue Holiday is healthy. And the best defender on both of the two Magic best players, Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, that day, at one point he had both guys 0 for 8. So Jrue Holiday's health, Kristaps Porzingis' health, if they stay healthy, Jim, I expect them to advance out of the Eastern Conference. I think Cleveland will give them one heck of a series in the East Finals. I expect it to be that, but I'd be shocked if the Boston Celtics don't come out.
Yeah, and just final one then to wrap you up, Doris, before I let you go. Cavaliers and Heat, I agree with you. I expect Cavaliers to get over this without Heat are probably on a way backwards in terms of that. But Cleveland Cavaliers, is it the case of OKC where they need this year to get the experience, and then the following year we had to have elite guards and Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell in terms of that? But is there there seems to be still something missing for me there, and I think that's where they'll fall up short against the Celtics. But maybe this experience might do them good for next year.
Listen, I believe this to my core. Cleveland can do some things to make the Boston Celtics very uncomfortable. The addition of DeAndre Hunter gives them the type of wing that's required to guard both Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Their depth is real. Their scoring ability and speed and size is real. They have a guy who could easily be Peyton Pritchard will win Sixth Man of the Year for Boston. The guy who could have been is Ty Jerome, who had a massive game 1. Listen, that's going to be a wildly competitive series if we get there. And I certainly give Cleveland a chance because I think they can make Boston uncomfortable. I do think the differentiator is what you said. Boston has been in how many conference finals over the course of Jalen and Jason's careers? They've been there so many times. And when it comes closing time, Al Horford has been there. Drew Holiday is a prior champion twice. Like, I think they have enough and they've played well and they have health that they will get over the hump to the NBA Finals.
Doris Burke, an absolute pleasure.
So fun, Jim. Thank you for having me. And as I said, Ireland is very near and dear to my heart. So when I saw where you were from, I said, I don't do many of these, to be honest with you. I'm busy, but I couldn't resist.